From Relay, this is Upgrade, episode 617 for May 25th, 2026. Today's show is brought to you by Sentry, Fitbod, and Mercury Weather. My name is Mike Hurley, and I'm joined by Jason Snell. Hi, Jason.
Hi, Mike. Welcome back to Upgrade.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I love being a listener of the show, and last week's episode was especially good. I want to thank Stephen and interviewee Jeffrey.
Yes.
For being on the show. It was really good. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. So, very excited about that. But there's no time for any of this because I have a Snell Talk question for you.
I see.
And the Snell Talk question comes from Amar, who says, when using Mac OS on a desktop, do you keep Safari full screen or do you keep it smaller in size? If it's smaller, do you have it maxed out vertically or horizontally?
Well, first off, this is a very technical question for Snell Talk. We usually this feels like more of an Ask Upgrade, but I'll take it. I'll take it.
Hey, look, this is what Amar wanted. They wanted this specifically in Snell Talk. So
okay. I don't run anything full screen. Anything.
Yes. Yeah,
ever on my Mac. Never, ever, ever, ever. Safari is probably somewhere between a third and a half my screen width wide on my 27-inch display, and it's usually probably 3/4 of the screen tall because I like to have room for other stuff to move around, and I don't need, unless I have to resize the web browser window for it to be especially bigger or smaller because of something in it. I'm a big fan of having windows be fractional sizes of my screen so I can have Discord over there and Slack over there and Notes over there and Safari over here and just have them all. That's why I like using the Mac with multiple windows and all of that. So that's my answer is generally, I'm sure there's a size. At some point I had an automation, I think, that automatically resized it to the exact right size that I like, but yeah. I can't be bothered. If I resize something and then I make a new window and it's the wrong size, I just grab the corner and make it the right size, and then I move on with my life.
So I have a Moom shortcut to resize a window, and it's set on how big I like my Safari window to be, and it's about 4/5 of the screen that I'm using. But centered, so there's space on either side, so I can grab other things if I want it.
Yep.
But it is full vertical height. Because for me, Safari, if I'm in Safari, I'm doing stuff. But then I have a bunch of other Moom shortcuts that if I want to be doing other things, I'll throw it over to the side. It can go, occupy any amount of horizontal real estate. So if I need to use Safari with other apps, I have many shortcuts to do that.
Sure.
But by and large, when I'm using Safari, I'm just surfing the web.
You're just scrolling.
I'm surfing and scrolling.
Okay.
That's me.
Sounds good.
Thank you to Amar for that technical Snell Talk question.
Yeah, very much
the
so.
first designated technical Snell Talk. Whoa, no. Hang on. Too soon.
That's
if you would
my
like
ruling.
to send in a question of your own for a future episode of the show, technical or not, go to upgradefeedback.com and send it in. We have some follow-up. So Aaron writes in and says, congratulations, Jason, on the eMate 300.
Dun, dun, dun.
A word of warning. I briefly had a side hustle repairing these back in 2008. The grease on the hinge clutch springs started drying out in the early 2000s, and as a result, the springs would not appropriately adjust when the lid was open or closed and would ultimately snap and sometimes tear the display cable.
Yes, this is a known issue. I kind of don't care. I looked up. I thought, oh, well, you need to do some work on the springs to make the springs, make the hinge work better. And then I found a video where somebody explained what you need to do. And I got to the point where he said, now you have to desolder these two cables off the board. And I thought, nope, that was it.
Yeah, that's not surprising. In listening to last week's episode, it's very funny that you were just I brought this one tool because at the exact moment anything more than this one tool was needed, I went the one to do it. Where Steve was like, Steve would fill up his truck with tools and other computers to maybe do open heart surgery on those old Macs.
Oh yeah. Whereas I brought Blue Scuzzy and whatever else to a keyboard and a mouse, and that's it. Stephen would have had, but he has more of that stuff than I do. That's part of the point here. Yes. It does work. I did reset it. I got the power cable for it and reset it, and the eMate does work. I don't really have any plans to do anything with it, but it does function. And if I if I did not have a no solder policy, or I had a friend who had was very pro soldering, we might desolder it and resolder it and do all of those things. But I'm not doing that. I'm strong policy against. So it will remain as it is, and hopefully it will remain functional.
I have a question for you, because I was not on the last episode, so I couldn't ask it. But
yes.
I think this is actually you've partly answered, at least with the eMate. But all of the old computers that you have been collecting, do you ever boot them up and do anything with them?
Well, I take pride in the fact that the computers behind me all work. And as I mentioned last week, the only one that I have that's really severely not working is the Mac Portable. So I take pride in the fact that they work. But so as a part of the 20 Macs for 2020 project and thereafter, what I decided to do at one point is I wanted to have the ability to boot different versions of OS X on different machines, because I thought that would be interesting from a historic perspective to have that. And so I do. I have a Quicksilver Power Mac G4 over here that has a hard drive in it with partitions for like every OS X version it boots. And so I can boot into all of those. And I like having that. The truth is that emulation is so good that a lot of, like, when I needed a screenshot the other day, and it was much easier to just run an emulator and take a screenshot than figure out, one, how to get that thing running on an old computer, and two, then get the screenshot off of it. Mm-hmm. So the truth is, it's more that vague that I like the idea that they can run and that they function than it is that I actually use them for anything. I mean, that's the truth of it. It's more like a little preservation, a little just set dressing, and a little pride that I've got some of them functioning. But the reality is, in most cases, if you want to look up what was something that was going on in Mac OS in 2009 or whatever, 2007, 2002, whenever it is, you could probably either emulate it by running it in, an emulator on your Mac, or even in a web browser because of Infinite Mac. So it's less useful. It's mostly, I mean, unlike Steven, I think, who really is collecting them at a completely other level, my big motivator was 20 Macs for 2020, and then building this shelf behind me so that if I'm on various podcasts like Mac Break Weekly every week, I've got a nice selection of interesting looking computers behind me. That's kind of, so it's also just set pieces.
So we're going to jump back a little bit to a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
Talking about Apple and Intel and such.
Mm-hmm.
Henry wrote in and said, on the topic of Apple's chip strategy, I wanted to mention that other Apple products like Apple Watch, AirPods, potentially smart glasses and the like, have chips that aren't on the most advanced process node. Yep. These chips could be manufactured by Intel and Samsung because they aren't as high volume as the A or M series chips. Even Apple's cellular and Wi-Fi Bluetooth chips could go into them. They don't have to make the most cutting-edge chip.
Yeah, these are the legacy nodes.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
These are the legacy nodes. And it's true. It's true, and I expect that they will do that. But what I will also say is that doesn't solve the problem of the A and M series chips all being made in Taiwan.
It can get you started, right? That, like, maybe the beginning of your partnership with somebody else, they're producing things that are less important. But the whole point of the discussion we're having, and the whole point of doing this, is to do the important chips, because that's what actually matters.
Yeah, in the long run, you just don't want to have a single source in Taiwan for your most important chips. But this is an absolutely true point, that the older nodes are going to be easier to manufacture elsewhere.
It's like the India iPhone building strategy, right? It began with the SE, then it became the regular phone, but months later, and now they started building the Pro phones immediately there. Yeah. So
also, I want to point out, I don't think TSMC is building all of Apple's chips now anyway, right? I think they get chips from other fabs that are running on old nodes. That's where legacy nodes came to be a refrain for Tim Cook. Is he was talking about getting a Wi-Fi chip from Broadcom or whatever and wherever they manufacture. I know Apple does that themselves now, but I actually don't know for a fact that TSMC is their partner on that, and they certainly don't need to be. Although again, it depends what process they're using and all of that. But so this is a good point. It just doesn't. There's lots of business they could bring to places that are on older technology nodes. That part of the strategy that we're discussing is also just making a more diversified source of iPhone and Mac chips.
Yep. So say the Apple Watch, when it gets a new system on a chip, is that considered a legacy node? Or...
I don't know enough about it. I mean, they don't boast about the Apple Watch being on a 3-nanometer process, do they?
Very true.
The answer
Very
is
true.
probably not.
Yeah, so it's like they're probably using some technology that was used somewhere else at some point that they've now been able to get into this. But yes, you say it's not probably not on the most cutting edge, or the chips that are going inside of the AirPods or whatever. It's not like an A19 Pro in there, right? It's like it's something different. But yeah, it's interesting. An anonymous question.
I've got real-time follow-up.
Oh, real-time follow-up.
Apple Thank you to David Schaub for sending this. The Apple Silicon page on Wikipedia does list the processes, and the latest S-series chips, which are for the Apple Watch, are 4-nanometer process, and the previous S8, S7, S6 were a 7-nanometer process. So yes, these are legacy nodes, and the Apple C1 cellular is also on a 4-nanometer process for the baseband. So that, I mean, yes, that makes sense, right? These are on older processes, and that's yes. So of course, if they're not using other partners, they certainly could be. It just doesn't solve the other problem. Anyway.
Coming back to an anonymous person wrote in and said, on the recent episode discussing Steve Jobs in exile, you were talking about Jobs' motivations, that he was not an enterprise guy. I was wondering what you thought about if part of that could be that although you can get rich selling to the enterprise and to government, you're not going to get the adulation and love from the enterprise and the government, and maybe that was what Steve really liked.
I think that's a little bit of the cart before the horse. I think Jobs conceived of consumer products. I think that is how he thought. Is it also true that what excites him about that is the idea that the general public is going to use them and love them? Sure, they go together. But I don't think it's... Look, we're psychoanalyzing Steve Jobs now. I don't think, which we could do it. I think he's more motivated by pursuing a vision of making products out of technology that regular people will like, putting them in the kitchen, putting them in your home, putting them on, in your pocket. I think he's more focused on that than he is on how do I get adulation. But I do think they are connected in the sense that, yes, it's not entirely true. I mean, the NSA will show you some love, but it's going to be secret love, mostly in money. Big institutions are just going to... I think he was a counterculture guy, very countercultural influenced guy, grew up in the 60s. I think he had a suspicion of big institutions and made the mistake in part because Next was kind of designed to not step on Apple because Apple was, threatening and suing Steve Jobs. They ended up in a niche that was exactly the wrong niche for Steve Jobs' mindset.
Okay. That makes sense. I just wanted to say you wrote a review of Steve Jobs in Exile on Six Colors.
I realized all I had done is interview the author on Upgrade, but I hadn't actually written my review. And this is one where I asked the Wall Street Journal book editor if I could review that too after I finished my David Pogue book, and he said, I just assigned it, so you can't. And so the Wall Street Journal wrote a very nice review of it. So I realized, oh, geez, I need to do that. The book's out now, so I did write that last week.
But the interview itself was so I'd been planning to read this book. I was interested in it, but the interview I enjoyed so much that I started reading it immediately, and so I'm working my way through it now. I will say the UK or the Europe cover I prefer to the US cover. I've put a link in the show notes to the Amazon UK listing, but it focuses like color-wise much more on the Next colors and has a little cube in there and stuff. Like,
nice.
I like the cover a lot. I don't know why they do that, like why different markets get different covers. I'm sure someone could tell me that. I'm sure you have many friends that could tell me that.
I think it comes down to different publishers, and different publishers in different markets have their method of selling books, and they know what works. I think that's kind of how it is.
Yeah, and this one, I just like it. I think it shows Steve more on the cover in it. But anyway, something I found so fascinating, reflecting on the book so far, is the full realization that Jobs was fully gone from Apple before I was born.
Mm-hmm.
But I was so aware of him as a kid before he returned. It's like I don't know why. You know what I mean? Like when he came back to Apple, I was aware of how big a deal that was, but I'd never seen him there prior. You know, like in kind of the exile years, he still was able to capture this allure, and I'm looking forward to reading more about that. Even though he was failing, he still had this allure.
It is the legend. I mean, I think a lot of what drove him and the currency that he was able to spend is in being the legendary founder of Apple and the legendary creator of the Mac. And even though he left before the Mac really became successful, all the success kind of accrued to him, right? Like, I mean, that's the truth. Is we can talk about a subject for another time, perhaps. Jean-Louis Gasset and John Scully, and where they took the Mac after they kicked Steve Jobs out, basically. I mean, they kicked him to Siberia, basically, and then he quit. But it is ironic that I think as they made the Mac more and more successful, it just built the legend of Steve Jobs. I think that's true.
I think Toy Story definitely did something. Like,
no. I mean, the flip side of it, right, is Pixar, where he was successful, where he was more hands off, was like the positive lesson for him while he was getting the crap kicked out of him at Next.
Yep. Does Steve Jobs in Exile have anything about Pixar in it?
It's got a little bit.
Okay.
It talks about it a little bit. Sure. Not in the incredible detail that it does about Next, but there are stories about him going up to Pixar, and Ed Catmull writes the afterword to the book. So.
Oh, cool! I really like the foreword by Daniel Lewin. Like that was a really great story.
It's very clear that Daniel Lewin, who was one of the prime movers in Next, was also a prime mover in making Steve Jobs in Exile. He's a key source.
You can
for
tell
all of it. Yeah.
You can tell. This episode is brought to you in part by our friends over at Sentry. Most AI tools that are out there can help you write code, but Sia is built for when code breaks. Sia is Sentry's AI debugging agent, and because it's built right into Sentry, it has your full context, your errors, traces, logs, replays, and code all in one place. When something goes wrong, it finds the root cause and opens a pull request before you even see the alert. It also reviews your pull requests against real production failures so bugs don't ship in the first place. Other AI tools guess, Sia knows why your app is broken. This tool, to me, Sia seems so powerful because it is giving you the ability to quickly fix your bugs and to understand why they're broken so you're able to get back to the work that you want. So you're not digging around, you're not copying and pasting stuff into a chat bot or whatever. You're getting what you need all within Sentry, and then you can go ahead and fix the code. And when you fix the code, you can go back to doing the work you really want to do, which is making your app better. Join millions of developers at companies like Anthropic and Disney Plus who use Sentry to move faster. Try it free at sentry.io and tell them that we sent you. They have a free dev plan, and listeners of this show can use the code UPGRADE26 to get $100 in Sentry credits if you're a new user. That's sentry.io and the code UPGRADE26. Our thanks to Sentry for their support of this show and Relay. It's time for Upstream. Jason Snell.
I
brought it back. It's back, everybody. Downstream died so Upstream could live.
Again.
Is where we are.
I guess so.
Welcome back to our fallen friend. Apple broadcast an MLS game live on Saturday using only iPhone 17 Pro cameras.
It's true.
All of the footage of the game was shot on iPhone, assuming that it was there in rigs. I saw an Instagram reel today where they showed off some of the production rigs that they were using.
I assume it's like the ones they used at the MLB games that they've had an iPhone camera at, where it's basically like tied into a breakout box that is, mounted with the camera on the tripod and all of that.
And I'm assuming also similar to some of the stuff that they've used to shoot the keynotes, right? Where we've seen imagery of that, where it's like, it essentially looks like a full production camera, but there's just an iPhone in the middle. It's got all the rigging and all the gear, like all the gear around it and stuff. Apple said with the cameras positioned throughout the venue, the broadcast will deliver pristine video quality alongside dynamic new perspectives that bring viewers closer to the action, made possible by the small form factor of the iPhone. Jason, was this your experience? Did you watch it?
I watched some of it. It really is amazing if you look at there's the Brian Tong went and did a TikTok where he's got he shows one of these enormous cameras, and then at the back of it there's an iPhone, right?
Yeah.
So it's they're, as we knew from the MLB thing, what they're doing is they're putting it in the context of modern TV production equipment, and then it's just a piece of the puzzle. It looked perfectly normal to me. They had some shots. They had sometimes, I don't know whether they always have like little gold cameras and all that. I think they do. I mean, the advantage is that they can put those, they can put those cameras everywhere, but the primary cameras were probably with really, the extra optics like that camera that was in the TikTok video, where it's just like when we talk about a movie shot on iPhone. Like, it's not like the iPhone is just in somebody's hand and they're in video mode, right? Like, there are professional tools that augment it. It's just a piece of the puzzle, but it's part of their marketing to do it that way. And I think it is impressive that, like, at its heart, the iPhone camera is good enough that it can do broadcast quality with accoutrements, right? That's always the catch.
Yeah, it's like, if you can watch this game and don't feel like it looks bad, that is an incredible achievement on its own, right? Yeah. Like, if they can do it, you're like, oh, this looks good. It's like, that's iPhones. And yes, they're in all of that gear, but it's still an iPhone. And so I think it is an impressive thing to do. I wonder what the goal of this is, if there even is one.
Go!
Hey, there he goes.
I think it is just like with the MLB stuff. I think it's just like the shot on iPhone with movies. The point is to say the iPhone camera doesn't have compromises, and it's so, and it's in some ways it is the iPhone camera is so pro that you as a regular person don't need to worry about it. It's going to be great. Yes. Even though, all of it is true. It's like, all these things are on iPhone, but obviously if you're a professional cinematographer, you're going to have a different rig, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All that is true, but in the end, it boils down to marketing, and it boils down to sending a message of a quality level. Apple stuff is so good that you could shoot a movie with it, and they have. And you could shoot an entire sporting event with it, and they have. So don't worry about it. You're going to get the best when you get an iPhone Pro. I think that's it. I think that's the entirety of the message, is you can do all of this.
It's like when we say pro, we mean it. And like, this is them kind of putting their money where their mouth is, kind of stuff.
We know you're not going to do that, dear consumer, but your phone is the same one that shot that movie, and your phone is the same one that shot that soccer match.
It's like when you're on a plane, it's like, is there a doctor on board? It's basically like, you're in the football stadium. It's like, does anyone have an iPhone? We need to shoot this game. And
we need an iPhone 17.
I'm good. I'm equipped. And now I can jump in if needed. Talking about Apple and football, they just released a Real Madrid documentary and immersive video on Vision Pro. This is a quote from you here. Apple's immersive productions are really benefiting from the larger selection of immersive cameras now that Blackmagic is apparently cranking out its Ursa Cine camera in volume.
Yeah,
they said there was a connection here?
They said there were more than 30 cameras that they used for this, and it was mostly capturing one game.
Okay, that's significantly different to what we've seen in other stuff.
Those early Vision Pro ones, you could tell they had one camera, maybe two. You could tell. And they said they had more than 30. They're all over the match, but they're also like watching the 90-year-old man who's watching at home, and they're with the taxi driver who's watching from his cab, and they're with the bar where the bartender is the president of the supporters club. And like that level of, I mean, they just couldn't do that before because they didn't have the cameras for it, and now they do. And it makes a difference in terms of how something gets shot. And so it shows immersive video having more moves than it did when there were no cameras to shoot. That said, a lot of the moves are very similar. It's still a lot of like sports highlights interspersed with, music and inspirational quotes from soccer players as they practice, and then they show them making goals in the game. And, it's... but the soccer action was great, and I think one of the things I noticed about it, like there's a high up angle that I thought was actually really great in understanding kind of soccer tactics in a way that I don't normally get from watching on TV. And there are some closer shots where you see, again, I don't know if it would work for live soccer, but for highlights, like what I always think when I watch high level soccer is the technical skill of the players is astounding. And it's all about like where they put their feet and stuff. And if you're watching a shot that's covering half the pitch, it's real hard to see that stuff. And so you're just like watching little stick figures bobbing around out there. And then you see a detail and you're like, these people are so incredibly like that. How did that guy get free? And the answer is a wild series of steps to fake out the other person. And in immersive, that comes through and is very impressive. So there's a bunch of impressive things there, but again, it's a 20-minute thing. It's about a match that happened 6 months ago, and like it's the same old story, right? Which is it's interesting. It's an interesting immersive short sports doc that makes you feel like you saw this match, which is great. But I keep wondering about actual like live sports, and all we've got so far is the NBA demos. But I do think that the big story, honestly, for me, is that you could see that they had lots of cameras this time, like the kind of camera setup that you would have for a professional documentary that was normal. And the old immersive videos weren't like that because they like we have a camera to shoot all of this, or maybe two. So
yeah, and it feels like to get what we want, which is like more action stuff, you need more cameras. And so this is, the more movies and documentaries and stuff that could be made with people managing 20, 30 of these things, the more likely it is to get to a point where somebody could be managing that for a live production too.
Yes, for sure. I mean, that's why they were able to do those Lakers games, is they had enough of the Blackmagic. It's not quite the same camera because it's Blackmagic Live, so it's obviously a different setup for live capture, but I'm sure a lot of it is the same kind of pathway, the same camera physically. And the more of those there are, the more chance that there will be an experimental something. But the challenge is what we've debated about those Lakers games, which is what's the right way to do it? And the only way to find out is to try. So I hope they try more.
Let's saddle up for a Roundup, Jason Snell.
Yeehaw.
The Sheriff Mark Gurman is reporting on some planned Apple Intelligence features for iOS 27. These include new writing tools, which would work similar to, or kind of like a Grammarly-style grammar checker.
Yeah.
So I'm going to read from Mark Gurman. The system appears in a translucent menu that slides up from the bottom of the screen and displays original text alongside suggested revisions. And then Mark says you can kind of like approve specific changes or accept them all or say go away. I would like this. This sounds great to me.
It's all in the details, right? Because because I have Grammarly, I pay for Grammarly, and I do it because I don't have copy editors, and it is an extra layer between me and the stuff I post. This is a correctly spelled word, but it's the wrong word because it's a typo, and you typed into another word. And it knows the context, so it'll correct that. Or you omitted a word here. Or you actually were not paying attention, and before that parenthetical, the verb tense, it was a plural, and you were thinking of the singular that's in the parenthetical, and so you use the wrong tense. That happens all the time to me, where it's just like I'm not thinking far enough back in the sentence. And it can do that. What I like about Grammarly is that there's a mode where it brings up a little box and it lets me step through its suggested changes and go yes, no, because there are a bunch of them that I don't agree with, that it's misreading what I'm doing. And I go, no, 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 yes, yes, no, no, no. What I don't like is having to play hunt the underlines and click on them, which is what it wants me to do. So, and my experience with the writing tools and Apple's tools is similar, which is, this sounds good. I hope it's got a UI that makes it usable, because that's the trick is I need to be able to step through my document using its suggestions and agree or disagree as I go. And does it lose context? If I click out to do a manual edit, is it gone or does it stay? All of these are my questions. One of the problems with writing tools, and I know we talked about this when it shipped, is Apple's got a whole existing spell check infrastructure, and then they have writing tools, and they do very similar things, and they're completely disconnected from each other because they rushed writing tools onto the platform. So it's like, you should integrate all of these things into one interface that users can feel comfortable using. So I hope that's what they do.
So you said about it's all in the details, and this one sounds good to me, but the details of this that we have so far, the next part, don't. Apple apparently want to try and elevate writing tools even more across the system, this time looking to add a Write with Siri toggle at the top of the keyboard and a Help Me Write button that can appear when working in a text field. This sounds like too much to me.
I think it depends on who you are. I am not interested in this and would like to turn it off already, and it's not even beta. But maybe some people want this. I don't know. I'm trying to take the approach with AI-based writing stuff that I'm a writer, and so I want to be understanding that a lot of people really struggle with writing, and that technology may help them get their message across in a way that they're not able to do. So I want to be open to it, depending on how it's implemented. It comes down to that. How do they do it? Do they do a good job at it? Is it something that doesn't feel heavy-handed and annoying, or is it just clippy, just getting in your way when you just want to write something? I don't know.
Mark reports that Apple is also looking to advance shortcuts of a prompt-based approach where the user describes what they want and the system will go ahead and build it, somewhat reminiscent of what our friend Federico released last week. He's been basically making this on his own. It's called Shortcuts Playground. People should go check it out. There'll be a link in the show notes to that.
Yeah.
And, Federico was assuming that he could potentially be Sherlocked, and that was why he wanted to get out before WWDC. I wonder about this, because it's like, what happens when people inevitably ask for a thing that Shortcuts just doesn't do? Like, what happens? It's just like, I can't do that.
I think so.
And then, my concern with a feature like this is if you give somebody a prompt in, field, these days, people kind of just get what they want from these tools, right? Like, if you're give me an image, give me some text, what is this? It's going to give you the answer. Shortcuts is a limited system, and you could ask for something that you think is quite simple. But so for example, you could say, download the audio from a YouTube video. It's a thing that people wanted to do with shortcuts for years and have done it in weird and hacky ways, but it seems like something your computer should be able to do for you. I don't think Shortcuts is going to give you an answer to that. And then at that point, how useful of a system is it to people? It'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, I think the goal is that especially it'll be for relatively simple functionality that you could say, for example, this is an automation that I actually use, which is when I connect to my Bluetooth shower speaker, I would like my phone to go into Do Not Disturb.
Okay.
I built that as a shortcut, but it would be better for 99% of users if they could just say, hello, Shortcuts. When I connect to my Bluetooth shower speaker, I want you to set my focus mode to Do Not Disturb. And when I disconnect, I want you to set it back to off.
Yeah.
And have it do that. I had to figure that out, and I have no problem doing that because I know how to use shortcuts, but most people don't. But the functionality is there. It's too complex, even now. So more complex stuff, it is going to say, oh, I don't think I can do that, or I tried and it didn't work, and all of that. I would think that also, I would hope that some of this will motivate Apple, because there are things that are part of the system that seem very logical to be automated that Apple doesn't allow you to automate. And I wonder if part of this process has also been they run a bunch of testing of these things and they're like, oh, geez, We really need to add access to that, don't we? And actually get their own stuff together. I think that would be great. So we'll see how it goes. But you're right. It will be interesting because it's not going to be able to do everything. The goal is like, can it do some basic stuff to make people happier? Because telling them how to build a shortcut and stuff is a lot. But if they can just tell the phone, can you do this? And have it give them an automation that actually works. That's awesome. I love that idea.
Because like for people like us, it's like the reason that Federico could build this tool and it makes sense is that we have an idea of what shortcuts is capable of doing.
Right.
But sometimes it can just be a pain. It's like, I need it to do this one thing, one time maybe, and I could spend 20 minutes setting up the shortcut. Like, it's like, I don't really want to do that, but it would be very convenient for me to have this shortcut right now. And it's like, but do I want to go through all of the things that I have to go through? So it's like, for us, it's like this could be a very good native feature to have as well. Also, Apple is working on a feature to let someone generate wallpapers for their devices powered by image playgrounds.
Okay.
Speaking of image playgrounds, in his Power On newsletter, Mark reported that both Genmoji and image playgrounds are going to get, quote, a major visual quality upgrade.
Sure.
And this is actually coming from Apple apparently having improved their own models, not just having access to third-party models.
Yeah. My lack of enthusiasm for the last 2 minutes has been because I don't like AI-generated imagery.
No.
I think Genmoji is okay, although it's not as good as I wanted, but it's okay.
It's a great idea.
But yes, it's a great idea that needs to be much better than it is. It doesn't really go
the way that you want it to. And so I'm hoping that this model may actually produce better options there. That would be good.
And I know people use, procedural or AI generated art. Like I know they do, but like I don't. And I don't like it, and I don't like how it looks, and I have a hard time being enthusiastic about it. It's one of the things I don't like about, in addition to LLM, writing just being not good and being overused. Also, the imagery is not great, and I don't like it. But great. I'm my biggest skepticism here is that it's like Apple's models. It's like, okay. You're using Apple's models, not Google's models, because I bet Google's models are better at this than Apple's models are. So why are they using Apple's models really, or are those Apple models that they call Apple models, but they're actually white label Gemini models? I don't know. I guess we'll see. I know that this is going to be a real tangent here, Mike. Hold on tight. I know that in the papal encyclical about AI released today, that the Pope said,
"Man, I don't know about this."
Oh
and so that sentence, I was like, "What's he talking about?"
Yeah, no.
Okay,
one of the things the Pope said is, essentially, I know that we can look at AI and say that there are ways to use the tools ethically and ways to use the tools unethically. But he also said, however, if fundamentally the thing that is creating the tools is unethical, we must consider that most of all. That if AI, it's his typical Pope saying don't enjoy things because he's the Pope, but he's saying basically like, basically you can't use an unethical tool ethically, even if you're trying to use it for good. If it's a fundamentally unethical tool, it's unethical. And so while acknowledging His Holiness, I will say I prefer using an unethical tool ethically to using an unethical tool unethically. And I just find a lot of this generated content gross and like distasteful in a way that saying make me a shortcut or build me a playlist or write me a Python script. Those are the things that I find not distasteful, but I also want to acknowledge that there is an argument to be made that they are all kind of fruits of a poisonous tree. But but I'm never going to get hyped about image playgrounds. It's just never going to happen.
No, I was thinking about this when I was on my vacation last week. I was thinking about image playgrounds.
As you do.
As you do.
Some people think about the Roman
time,
Empire. Some people think about Image Playgrounds. That's just how it is.
Image Playgrounds is my Roman Empire, like absolutely. I was thinking about it having just listened to Connected because I was also not unconnected.
It's true.
Week before last now.
Week before last.
And they were talking about Image Playgrounds, and there was just this, and about it being advanced. They were talking about it with other models, which is apparently another thing, right? That you may be able to put Gemini in there as well, and you can just choose who you want to make your images. Just there will be a story one day, I believe, about just how much of a massive mistake and disaster this tool was, because it's just so bad, right? And it was so bad quality-wise from day one, let alone all of the ethical problems with it, let alone the thing that frustrated me the most and continues to is that, like, its whole proposition is make fake images of people in your life, which is, like, just like to me, a terrible thing to do. But now they're in it now. And so they're just continuing down this road for God knows how long. Sorry, Pope. For gosh knows how long, Pope might be listening. I don't know. So I don't,
Maybe.
At this, I would love one day to know the story about Image Playgrounds, because I don't think it was a good one.
No, definitely not.
This episode is brought to you by Fitbod. If you're looking to change your fitness, it can be hard to know where to get started. That's why I want to tell you about Fitbod. It is an easy, affordable, and approachable way to build a fitness plan that is made for you, because everybody has their own path to personal fitness, and you need a tailored experience so you'll actually see the results. You need something that's paying attention to you, paying attention to your experience, your environment, your goals, and the exercises that you're doing to make sure that you have a balanced, well-designed workout routine. Fitbod tracks your muscle fatigue and recovery as you're doing your exercises and mixes them all up for making sure that you're going to get new types of exercises, new reps, new circuits. This makes sure that you're getting that balanced workout routine, but one of the things that I love is it's varied, and having a varied workout routine keeps me engaged. If I'm doing the same things over and over again, I get bored, and if I get bored, I'm less likely to want to do it. You will see the best results when a workout program is tailored to you. The information that you need and information about your experience, the equipment that you have, and the workouts that you're doing, they're all stored in your Fitbod gym profile. Fitbod have analyzed billions of data points to make sure that they're doing things the right way. They're all fine-tuned by certified personal trainers, and they do this to make sure that you're avoiding burnout and keeping up your momentum, and they have more than 1,000 demonstration videos in the app, so you can always make sure you're learning a new exercise the right way. Fitbod integrates with your Apple Watch, your Wear OS smartwatch, and other apps you might use like Strava, Fitbit, and Apple Health. Personalized training of this quality can be really expensive, but Fitbod is only $15.99 a month or $95.99 a year, but you can get a great 25% off your membership by signing up today at fitbod.me/upgrade. That is fitbod.me/upgrade. That is one last time, fitbod.me/upgrade for 25% off your membership and to get your customized fitness plan. Our thanks to Fitbod for their support of this show and Relay. So we are 2 weeks away from WWDC.
No.
We are drafting next week.
No, it can't be.
I had originally set a task to do the draft prep, to start building it together. I set this task for the 2nd of June. That would have been the day after the draft. So that's not the right day to do that. I've now set it for tomorrow. Because I lost a little bit of track there in the old calendar. So I wanted to, because we do the draft, and the draft is what it is. It's a game, and we're not necessarily representing what we think and feel about WWDC. I kind of wanted to get a bit of a vibe check with you about WWDC this year.
Wow.
I think that WWDC 2024 set a weird precedent that now I kind of feel like I never truly know what my emotional state will be after WWDC, where previously it was always either I'm really excited or, that just wasn't what I wanted. And WWDC 24 gave me shell shock feeling, and I'm upset and angry, which is not really a thing that I'd had before. And so now I kind of feel like it's nice to kind of, where are we? Are we feeling good? What things are we already questioning? Maybe have concerns about. So overall, how are you feeling right now about the WWDC on the horizon?
I feel like this is upgrade on hard mode because you're just asking me for feelings.
Yeah, man.
Oof.
You know I love them.
I know you do. You eat them up. I will say my WWDC experience is different from yours, and this is because I've been covering it since the 20th century, since the 90s. And so on one level, I just view it as coverage time, content, gathering and writing and recording, and it takes me a while to step back from it's a lot of work, and then it's also setting my agenda for the next summer and fall and year to think about it, because on another level, Apple's going to do what it's going to do. But if I look back and I say, what's my table setting for this? I would say this is where Apple, last year, Apple had to make good on its promises. That was the goal, right? It was make good on our promises because we failed that the year before. Okay. This year, it's more like they have to deliver, right? They have to deliver a coherent AI strategy. They have to deliver what they failed to deliver in 2024. Whereas 2025 was like, we need to deliver anything to show you that we will fulfill our promises. This year, they're back to 24, where they actually have to deliver AI strategy that they punted on more or less last year.
Yeah, you're saying about the promises. In 25, it was, you got to deliver on the promises you make here, right? I think is what you're saying, right?
Yes.
The promises you make at WWDC, you have to deliver them.
Everything they shipped last year, everything they announced last year at WWDC, they shipped, because they didn't announce anything that they weren't confident was going to ship, because they wanted to say, we're sorry we broke that promise last year. But what they didn't do is fulfill the promises from 2024.
And that's what 2026 should be about.
It's making new promises.
An AI strategy.
They're renewing their vows.
Yes, they're renewing their vows. It's a beautiful way to put it, because what they're not going to do is ship all the stuff that they announced in 2024.
No.
I think there were things in there we will never see. They will be memory holed away, and
literally
never spoken about again.
The guy in charge of AI in 2024 is gone.
Yes.
The person in charge of the Siri team is gone. Yes. There's new people in charge of AI, and Craig Federighi is now officially in charge of this whole kind of effort. So I don't expect that they'll be held to the promises of their predecessors, but they will be held to the expectation that they will make important strategic announcements. And so on that level, I think it'll be interesting, and I think we will want to see what they are willing to promise. And I think this comes back to the conflict between 24 and 25, because 25 is about what's doable and very pragmatic. And 24, they got ahead of their skis. The problem is, I think there's a real risk, especially since they always come out right after Google I/O. I think there's a real risk that Apple takes it carefully and doesn't overpromise, and as a result, the net effect of WWDC is a bit of a disappointment, because they're being too restrained and they're perceived as being behind. Now, on one level, that not doing that is what got them into trouble in 24, right? That this is literally, they felt the pressure and they made some bad decisions. At the same time, it's not a positive outcome to say Apple announced a bunch of things that they're willing to ship in the fall, but they're not interesting, right? They need to show that, armed with their Gemini partnership and 2 years of rethinking this, that they're going to do Apple-y stuff with AI that will allow their platform to be relevant. And again, they're not necessarily going to be, I mean, people will judge them however they will, but like in the end, it's their customers who need to judge them. Is it useful? Is it a thing I want? Am I looking longingly over at what's happening on Android? Or is this all just a lot of yelling, but in reality, my iPhone does everything I want and I'm happy with it? You're right. They don't have to match what Google does, but they do need to use AI technology in places that make the experience better. And that's going to be an interesting balance for them to walk, I think.
Yeah, I feel like this year is the real Apple Intelligence year, right? Like this is the actual one. 2024 was a bit of a fake out. They gave us the name and not really much else. And this year is like, okay, we gave you a year off. Now what are you bringing to the table?
Yeah. And Siri, I mean, that's the other thing is that
yes.
Siri at the center of this, they need to fix it. And what does that look like? And again, they're going to make promises. So there will be skepticism. And there should be. Anytime Apple says we made Siri better, everybody should be like, really? I'll see it. I'll believe it when I see it. But they have to do it. They have to have a unified strategy. They need to. Here's the thing. 2024 was panic. They panicked. They were late. They felt they were late. They slapped a bunch of stuff together that wasn't up to their standards. The stuff that did ship felt slapped on. A bunch of stuff didn't ship. It was a disaster. Okay. They took the loss. 25 was about repairing people's trust in them a little bit, that they're like, we get the message, we need to deliver what we promise. But 26 really is, you've had 2 years. What you need to give us is well thought out functionality, not a new collection of slapped together features. And that's one of the things that I will definitely be looking for is, does this feel coherent in a way that 24 didn't? Because I'm telling you, we can over-focus on the stuff that didn't ship. The stuff that did ship wasn't very good. It was very standalone, not well integrated. You had a bunch of things that were running alongside of other things that were very similar, like the writing tools thing, because they didn't have time to integrate everything. They didn't have time for a big plan. They just slapped it in there because it was a thing they thought they could ship. I want to see what they do when they've had at least a little bit of time to actually think about this, and that there are new people in charge who are thinking about this as a high level and thinking sort of like, what can we do as Apple to use this technology to create things that people want? So I want to see a lot less panic. I want to see a lot more thoughtfulness and utility. I don't want them chasing the edge cases that the cutting edge AI companies are doing. I want them solving for iPhone problems using AI tools where it's relevant to fix things that their customers want to have fixed. And that means Siri working better. It does. And having a more familiar interface to do text conversations and all that with Siri. Like, yes, it's that. It's the shortcuts generation is a great example. That solves an issue, which is, this is an incredibly automatable platform, but it's also just a phone. Like, nobody really wants to do programming on their phone, even in shortcuts. But if I could tell it what I want it to do, and it's capable of doing it, that's pretty cool, right? Like, I could see a lot of people, not everybody, but more than the tiny fraction of people who use shortcuts. And shortcuts becomes like an infrastructure for this higher level, a one level, even further abstracted, but that gets more users. That's a victory. But that's, in general, that's what I want to see. Is I want to see features that make sense as a user, not that make sense in order to placate critics in the industry or in the investment community who don't really actually understand what Apple is all about and are just hoping that Apple there's so many people who just want Apple to act like everybody else, and this has always been the case. And Apple doesn't succeed when it acts like everybody else. It succeeds when it acts like Apple. But that's the question, is it going to do that? Does it have a good, appropriate Apple response to the last 2 years in terms of the progression of AI?
Okay, so there is this technology that exists. Great. how do you integrate it into the operating systems in a way that feels natural, helpful, and, as you say, cohesive overall, right? It's like, okay, great, you have this technology, but what are you actually going to do to enable your users to have a better experience with it? Because, as you say, the tools that they have shipped, they're disjointed. They're so disjointed that it's just a collection of random OS features. No,
they called it Apple Intelligence, but it was like an umbrella term for a bunch of stuff that they just jammed in there at the last minute out of desperation. And they need to turn the page, and they need to show a thoughtful set of features. And my concern is that they won't. My concern is that they're still going to be kind of like just firing a hot dog cannon at the OS, and like there's a hot dog over there and there's one over there, and like I don't want that. I want them to think about it all. Like this Mark Gurman's report about the grammar checker, and it's all that. Well, you need to revisit your entire writing stack and have the grammar checking and spell checking and all of that be in one interface with, and be thoughtfully constructed. A team needs to have built that whole thing instead of, well, we've got this thing laying around that's been there for 15 years and now we're going to jam this other thing over here. Like, you can't do that. You shouldn't. That's not what the Apple experience should be like. So really it's like, how fearful are they, or how concerted have they been? Now, given the recent few years of Apple software side, I'm concerned about this. However, I will say, and I know I've been talking about this about staff turnover in general at Apple, but like, never underestimate the power of having new people in charge. And if like Mike Rockwell and Craig Federighi, who did not have as much control over this 2 years ago as they do now, they have the opportunity to say, we're going to step up. We know what happened that was wrong, and we're going to fix it. And we're committed to fixing it. And they have the credibility, I would think, within the organization to tell the people working on this, okay, turn the page. Let's do this right this time. So I have some optimism because there's new people in place, along with some skepticism because of Apple's recent track record.
Do you think, I mean, our conversation so far has basically been all AI.
Yeah.
That's what this year is, right? Like, I'm not really expecting much other big stuff.
Yeah, I think the best way to think of this is, and the Gurman report suggests this, is imagine this being the proverbial snow leopard year, right? This is a year where what they seem to be trying to do, reportedly, is look at performance, look at stability, fix some bugs, make some nice quality of life improvements around the edges, and finally roll out like how they're going to use AI technologies in ways that fit with their platform.
Yeah. That
seems to be what it is. So if you're totally turned off on AI stuff, I think WWDC is going to be a lot less interesting to you. Although I will point out again, Snow Leopard had like hundreds of features.
Yeah.
They don't talk about that. Like, there will be little bits. Like, I'm fascinated, to give you one example, and it is AI related, but like Spotlight and Siri and how those all fit together on the Mac as well as on the iPhone and iPad. Like, a proper rethink of how all of that kind of type in a box and find things works on your computer could be really good. It could also be really bad, but it could be really good. So we'll see. I mean, look, I don't think they're going to do anything but refine Liquid Glass on iOS. I hope that they do some cleanup on the Mac, right? Because the Mac really just kind of needs to be cleaned up. The Mac is a mess. But I think, Liquid Glass is still going to be there, but I think that they are trying, like everybody else yells and they're like, I hate it. And they're like, well, we're not going back. So a competent, qualified designer, and the designers are new too, right, will say, what makes you hate it? What about it do you hate? What about makes it harder for you to do what you want to do? And they take those and they internalize those and they figure out how to make changes, not to throw away Liquid Glass, but to make changes to the design so that it it sands off all of those rough edges so that they solve the problem, right? You're not the recommended solution, which is don't do liquid glass. That's not going to happen. It's not helpful. But if they've listened to the reasons why people feel that way, and they can make that better so that it's a more functional design system, that's what I would expect to see, is that.
When Apple unveils kind of like big new initiatives, usually, it's like, oh, here's the thing, and we're going to use it, and then maybe the next year developers get to use it. Like that's like a pretty standard thing that they do.
Classic.
Do you think that if they have a big AI initiative that they will take this approach, or do you think there might be more developer involvement this year because of kind of the quote-unquote delay of it all?
I think that exactly what you just said. Because we've known and developers have known about the app intense strategy, and I am kind of assuming that continues to be the strategy, is app intense is basically the new version of scriptable apps on the Mac back in the AppleScript days. App intense is, I'll give you an example. BBEdit 16 just came out.
Yep.
And the old BBEdit shortcut support was really not anything. It's very AppleScriptable, but not very shortcutsable. But the new version of BBEdit has a bunch of app intents in it. Mm-hmm. And the app intents are functions of the program that just get offered to the system, which means that Siri and shortcuts and anybody else can use process lines containing sort lines. They don't even need to open up a BBEdit window. In fact, if BBEdit's not open and you run a shortcut that is using one of those app intents, you don't even see BBEdit run. It does
Nice.
launch hidden, but you don't see it. It just uses the code in BBEdit to hand off this job, and BBEdit does this great, because BBEdit, in addition to being a text editor, is a great text utility, hands it back to you, and then you move on. That's the promise of app intents, is that app developers are also kind of like bringing their features into the system, which gives the system more power. It solves one of your problems that you mentioned, Mike, where you said, what if we run up against shortcuts not being able to do something? Well, if it's smart enough to understand that you've got BBEdit installed, then it says, oh, I do know how to do that. Let's use that. And I can use that feature from BBEdit or any other app that does this. So I think that's the answer, is that because they were laying a lot of this groundwork for developers, I'm sure there will be some new areas, but because they're laying all this groundwork for developers, and also because I think they're aware that there's a lot of scrutiny of them rolling out features that are only privileging first-party apps in places like Europe, that I think it will be a more open for developers story than it is some years.
Yeah, because obviously we had you had the app intents that nothing really happened with. Like action across apps and that kind of stuff. But also the foundation models are a thing that have existed, and private cloud compute is a thing that exists.
Right.
I would like to see, developers get access to private cloud compute,
Yes.
but more importantly, significant updates to the foundation models. So these are things that can be run on device that developers can take advantage of to do interesting things in their apps.
Right. That is true. Foundation models, which it sounds like are not going to be based on Google's models, but these are the on-device models. But we'll see what their story is, and we'll see what their story is with private cloud compute. But it is true. One of the things to follow up on is you have access to Apple's models in shortcuts, but app developers don't have access to Apple's models. Apple's, private cloud compute. I think they have access to the on-device models, but not private cloud compute. Yeah. And probably what they need is a payment method, right? That there'll probably be like an API charge for apps that want to use private cloud compute, because that's a tangible resource. And if you want to use it, and it's like it's there on every system, which is not the case, because the model with OpenAI and stuff like that is that, mostly it's you want to use that feature, you need to log in with your OpenAI account. This would be like they do with WeatherKit, where if you want to use an Apple model, you build that into your subscription fee for your app, and Apple will send you a bill every quarter or whatever for your API usage of all your users, and you just have to build that into the economics of your app. And they should do that. I hope they do that. The only way I think they don't do that is if the future of private cloud compute is in flux a little bit, where they're like, we don't really know if we want to let people have that, because is it going to stick around, or is it really going to be kind of, is it hosted only on Google's servers, or is it on our servers too? And what, there's some lack of clarity there that might be a problem, but I hope so, because I mean, private cloud compute actually is very helpful in some of my shortcuts that I'm writing, and for me it's free, which is even better. So yeah, I hope developers have access to it, even if they have to pay some.
So we're talking about 24 a lot, obviously, and trust. Do you think Apple will do anything differently with either demos as part of the presentation or demos afterwards? Because they know that everyone is going to be looking at them and saying, yeah, but really though, especially the media. Will, if Apple show off new features coming to iOS 27 that are incredible whiz-bang AI model features, everyone's going to say in their articles, yes, but do we really know?
Yes. I think they will.
Do you think they might change stuff?
I think they're going to say, this is, they're probably saying in their presentations, this is actually running.
Yep.
And then I think in their briefings and stuff like that, I think that they're going to give more, they're either going to show it running, or they're going to say, yes, that is what you're seeing there is code that's actually running. I think they'll do some of that just to reassure people. But I would not be surprised if I'm in a briefing and there's an iPhone that they show us and say, this is it running. Look at it. We're doing this now. I would not be surprised at all.
Yeah. That would think, it would not be a surprise to me if people leave their briefings and they're like, I did it. They gave me a phone and I did it. Like to kind of really kind of like
right. A guided
home.
Don't do something that's going to break it, but a guided kind of thing. Yes. In fact, Federico's going, right?
Yes.
So I would be shocked if Federico isn't given the opportunity to tell a generative shortcut builder to do something.
Yes. It would be surprising, wouldn't it, if he did not get the ability to say that?
Be.
I agree.
I mean, it's possible that's like, but they don't want to say, oh, that's not working yet, if they promise that feature. If that feature doesn't exist, then they won't show him that feature. But if that feature exists, I have a hard time imagining that either he will be able to do it, or they will sit with him and an iPad and do it while he can watch it happening, right? I feel like that is, they got to do more of that. Because they know they do. Because they know they need to prove that this is stuff that's actually functional, even if it's in beta. I also think that a lot of this stuff, they're going to lean towards shipping it in the first developer beta, even if it's weird and buggy, because I think they're going to lean more toward, it's okay if it's weird and buggy. It's worse if it's not there.
Yeah. Yeah, let's just show we have something.
Yeah, in the developer betas, they will often it's not really there in developer 1, but it's there in beta 2 or beta 3. And I'm sure there will be some of that. But I think that they want to, yes, after 24, I think they're inclined to show people that it's real.
Do you expect any hardware this year?
I don't.
No Macs?
I never do.
Okay.
I don't think, given the state of affairs in the world, I think it's unnecessary, and no. I mean, they got enough to talk about. I don't think they need. I mean, it would be a nice distraction, I suppose. But I don't know. I mean, they could do some new Macs and stuff, but it's WWDC. If they want to make developers happy and they have the ability, they can announce the high-end Mac studios and stuff. But it sounds to me like they have a hard time getting the chips, so maybe they shouldn't.
Yeah. And last thing, Tim Cook and John Turnus. What do you think's going to happen? Do you think they're going to have any kind of torch passing one way or another? Are they going to acknowledge this? Is Tim going to have a thing where it's like, this is the last one?
I don't think that. I think Tim and John Turnus and Craig Federighi will come on stage at Apple Park before the video to say hi to the crowd. Assuming it's staged like it has been the last few years, which I just assume it will be. And I assume that in the video, it's possible Tim will say something about, this is, I've been doing this for all this time and this is my last one, but it's still going to be the same video regardless. It's going to be, this is Tim. We got a bunch of great stuff. Let's get into it. And that they will make a point of having John Turnus be involved somewhere in that video.
Yeah.
Even though he's the hardware guy. He's also now the new CEO guy. Maybe they do it together. They do the intro together.
I could imagine them doing something together, intro or outro or whatever, to kind of just be like, hey, everybody, like just, I don't know if it's important, but show the united front of it all,
Right.
Like we're all good.
I will say, if they could swing it in terms of availability, the best thing to do is announce Mac Studios and maybe Mac Minis using M5, because that's a thing that John Turnus could do.
Yes.
And it would be a message to developers, and they could they boast about the AI performance on those systems. I just don't know if they can ship them. So
yeah,
we'll see.
I mean, saying that thing for John Turnus can do anything now. Like they don't need to do Macs to have Turnus as a part of this. He's going to be the CEO in 3 months.
Yeah, but as CEO, I don't think he wants to eat Craig Federighi's lunch, right? Like Craig needs to do a bunch of software.
No, I mean,
stuff.
like he can appear in some portion of the keynote without there needing to be hardware.
Yeah,
like
I just don't know what that is
at the end or whatever.
I just don't know what that is. Maybe, but an easy way to get him in would be to announce some new hardware. I just don't. Normally, I would say it actually sounds pretty good as a time to introduce, since they aren't out yet, to introduce the Mac Mini and the Mac Studio, or at the very least the Mac Studio at this, because that's a developer product basically. And it's got a good AI story, but do they have them? If they do, then having John Turnus be involved in that way is easy. That's an easy answer. But yeah, I'm sure we'll see him, and maybe Tim Cook opens it and John Turnus closes it. Maybe that is the way it'll go.
I would be really disappointed if Tim does not acknowledge it. That is his last one.
Yeah,
I think that would be a shame.
I think it's more likely than not that he will.
Yeah, I think that'd be a real shame.
This is my last WWDC as CEO. It's such an honor to talk about this. At the beginning or the end, but I think that'll be it. It'll be a little bookmark, a little tag, something like that.
There's a button on this. Are you eager, excited, interested? Like, what is your overall kind of feeling for WWDC? Do you have one? Because I'll say I'm excited. I'm excited like I am every year. I look forward to this. Similarly for you, where you say like it sets your year, I have that feeling, but mine comes from the like being generally enthusiastic. I was like, I am excited for what I am to be excited about for the next 3 months. Like I like that about WWDC, right? It's like setting what can be my tone. Sometimes I am excited to be annoyed. You know what I mean? Like I'm excited about the fact that I will be angry about Image Playgrounds for the next 3 months, right? That was 24. Then in last year, I was really excited about Liquid Glass. I thought it looked great. I thought it was going to be really interesting. It was really interesting. And I this time I am very excited about what I think will be some very interesting, sticky, and kind of in-depth conversations that we will have between June and September of like, how good is this stuff? What does it do? Is it worthwhile? Like, these are the kinds of things that I'm eager about kind of going into WWDC.
Yeah, no, I get it. It gives us a lot to talk about, and we really do prefer talking about the details of things that exist and not sort of imagining what might be the strategy that leads to things that might exist. So having some reality will be great. But, it's the same story that I said before, which is, for me, I approach every one of these as a content challenge, as a work challenge, because it's been my job for so long. I think about, here we go. We're going to go into the grind. I'm going to go down to the South Bay. I'm in a hotel for a couple of days because it's a very busy time. I'm going to have a bunch of logistics. I'm going to see people. I got a bunch of briefings, presumably. I don't have my calendar, but I assume so. We got to find a time to record Upgrade. And then what happens later in the week? And then I have the added logistics of, at the end of that week, I'm going to Oregon for my son's college graduation. So there's a lot going on. And so I'm thinking a lot of it is about just plans of, where am I going? What am I doing? How do I get the work done? How do we get everything we need to do? And then after it's over, it's definitely picking up the pieces of like, what does this all mean? That week after I'm down there for a couple of days, the rest of the week, Wednesday and Thursday, it's a lot of watching videos because there's a lot to be gleaned from those developer videos that get released that offer way more details about what is going on than what was said in any of the videos on stage. So you're like, your brain is kind of like processing everything because it's overload in the day of, and then for me, I'll get briefings and there'll be even more information overload from that. And then there's the videos. And so then for the rest of the summer, for our one post keynote episode the following week, you're starting to process what you've seen. And then that is a process that lasts all over the summer. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it because I like that whole thing. But I think going into it, it's very hard for me to express anything other than the kind of like, it's not even trepidation. It's just like prep. It's like getting down to business. I have tried to compartmentalize all of that, planning and anxiety and all of that as, it's part of the job. So I will feel more enthusiasm when we're talking about it afterward.
Yeah,
I think.
Too. Yeah. As a footnote for me too as well, last year at WWDC, I had just started working with CrossForward on Widgetsmith and Pedometer. This year, I'm very involved now. And so I have additional things that I will be looking for as a quote-unquote developer, as part of a development company, that will be exciting and interesting to me alongside of everything else. So that I'm pretty eager about. Like if a WWDC from that lens as well, of like there are things that I will care about and will pay much more attention to than I would have any other year.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. You and Steven having this other perspective about it. Developing, you're developing perspective, so to speak.
Yes, developing perspective. But yeah, I am excited for that too, because there will be, I'm sure there'll be sessions that I will watch that I otherwise wouldn't have cared about because there'll be something marketing related or, things they're doing for the App Store and all that kind of stuff that will be of genuine interest to me now that I wouldn't have really thought or given too much of a look at prior because it just wasn't my world.
Yeah, and that I think, as long as we disclaim where need be, but like it gives you a different perspective that you can bring to the show, which is also kind of fun.
Yeah. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Mercury Weather. Mercury Weather is a thoughtfully designed weather app that shows all the essential weather details at a glance. It has a gorgeous, colorful interface that dynamically adapts to the conditions of a warm orange palette on a sunny day, icy tones on a cold day, or deep blue on a rainy night. Let me tell you, Jason, Mercury Weather for me right now, very orange indeed, because it's incredibly hot in London. Right now, we're experiencing a bit of a heat wave, so I'm getting to see those very, very bright oranges in Mercury Weather. It also has a glanceable chart layout to present the hourly and daily forecast in a way that feels intuitive to you right away. And I want to mention again the very cool feature they have for travelers. Mercury's trip forecast feature automatically shows the weather at your destination right in your daily forecast timeline. So you always see the weather for where you'll be, not just where you are. And again, super helpful for me when I was coming back from Romania. When we left for Romania, the weather was very different in London to when we returned. And so I opened Mercury Weather the day before we were traveling, and I could see it was actually going to be warmer in London than it was in Romania. So I was like, oh, that is very helpful for how I'm going to dress for this trip home. Yeah. So it was really helpful to see the weather for where I was going to be as well as for where I was at that moment. When the weather gets serious, Mercury offers storm and hurricane tracking with maps, live positions, forecast path, cones, and intensity, plus widgets so you can keep tabs on a specific storm or the closest one right from your home screen. Overall, Mercury Weather's gorgeous interface makes it a delight to check the weather every day, even on grey and rainy ones. The app's business model is simple. No ads, no selling of user data. It's available on the iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, and Mac. You can download it, use the standard features for free, and then upgrade to Mercury Premium to unlock everything. Go to mercuryweather.app/upgrade to download Mercury Weather now. Use the link in the show notes to let them know that you came to them from this show. That is mercuryweather.app/upgrade. Try it out for free, get all of the standard features for free, and then you can upgrade to Mercury Premium. Our thanks to Mercury Weather for their support of this show and all of Relay. It is time for some Ask Upgrade questions. First one comes from Holly, who wants to know. This is kind of going back to conversations that you and Stephen were having last week about the original sin of the apps of Apple in the App Store. What if Apple were to split how it handled App Store apps? My proposal would be that games continue with the firm 30% cut of all revenue and a requirement to use the App Store, but all other apps get reduced to 10% and have the ability to be listed externally after security review by Apple. This keeps 90% of Apple's App Store revenue, still lets them hold a firm position against Epic. This separates the iPhone as a gaming platform from its computing platform.
I mean, this feels very much like the John Gruber argument. I've seen him make a similar argument. I don't know. I think we're too far down the road now. I think Apple's saying, but wait, we're actually just a games platform. Not only is the group that's pushing this the most a company that makes games, but I think it's too far gone. I think the argument is if it's unfair, it's unfair. Regardless of it doesn't segmenting out one kind of app doesn't change the fairness of it. So I think it's too late.
There was a time that this could have worked. That time was long since past. And I think if they had done it this way after they hit the magical Phil Schiller billion, the Shillion, never do that again. After they hit that level, I think if they would have done something like this, we would be having different kinds of conversations.
Sure.
And I think it would not have affected Apple to a significant... I think even if they did this now, it would not affect them to a significant degree. I think the vast majority of money that the App Store brings in is game-related revenue. It must be. Just because of the way that games monetize. They monetize completely differently to other types of apps. And you know what? For some reason, people pay that money where they don't pay it for regular apps.
Yeah.
They will pay coins and
true.
gems and all that kind of stuff. So, this is a model that would probably have worked, but they needed to make that decision 10 years ago.
Yeah, I agree.
Prem writes in and says, given how well Macs are doing as machines to run AI agents like Claude Code and Codex and such, do you think Apple may release any new features to make them run better in the next version of macOS? I'll broaden this question out in case it's a little too specific, Jason, which is, can you imagine Apple providing Mac-specific features to help them be better for coding agents in some way, or these agents or computer use agents? Do you think Apple may focus on the Mac as the AI platform?
Honestly, the Mac is so successful at this already. I would imagine that if Anthropic or OpenAI is coming to Apple and saying, look, we have a problem where our popular coding agents have this one thing that they can't do because there's an OS limitation, that Apple would probably be like, let's fix that, right? But I'm not sure that's a feature for the end user because this has been successful. I would say what I want to look for here is Apple's story about this. And I know I mentioned this on a podcast. I'm not sure if it was this one or not, but there was a friend of mine who was who's vibe coding apps and observing that Xcode is completely inscrutable. And this was an actual friend of mine, not me. Although I will say I tried to vibe code a Mac app last week in an afternoon, and it stunningly worked. But most of my questions to Claude were how to use Xcode, because Xcode is impenetrable. And so I think, obviously, number one is Apple should continue, and their developer team has been doing this. I've gotten some really good briefings from the developer team at WWDC over the years and outside of it about what they're doing with coding stuff. They want Xcode to be super integrated with whatever models you want to use. And they're going to continue that. I think they're going to be very aggressive on that front. But I think they need an easy mode for Xcode because it is so powerful to use these agents to build Mac apps and maybe even iOS apps in Xcode, right? But Xcode is hard. I'm I'm a longtime Mac user, friends, and I look at Xcode and I have no idea what I'm even looking at. And I have had developer friends walk me through where you have to click, and like it doesn't make any sense. There's no logic to this. It is so weird where you do things in Xcode, and so that's what I think like the number one.
You know what? Like I bet that is if you ask the developer to open Logic, right? You said like Logic Pro, and be like use this, edit a podcast. It's like, I don't know what to do, man.
And that's why GarageBand exists. And I'm not saying they need to create, a Playgrounds version of the app, although they could do that. But I'm saying, what if you built a mode into Xcode? You build a separate app, but it needs to be able to do everything Xcode can do, which is why you probably just need to build a mode into Xcode. That is more, because the bar has lowered on who can use Xcode now.
Yeah.
Who can develop apps now.
And who wants to use Xcode. That has really broadened, because now there are people that want to build apps for themselves, and they want them to be iPhone apps. And they have to use Xcode for that at some point. And so then how complicated?
Yes.
For lack of a better term, essentially a vibe code mode of Xcode.
Yeah.
Where it's like, just make this simple, or build it so that the tool that I'm already using can just talk to Xcode and do what needs to be done in the background.
Right. Maybe it's a helper app that is like the super friendly. Maybe it's a mode in Xcode. I don't know. But I feel like that's the thing they need to lead into. If there's anything they can do to make kind of agentic stuff on the Mac work better, then great. If they want to build some of that themselves, then great. But I think that the Mac's already been seen as a pretty good platform for all of that kind of stuff. But that's the one that has come up to me a few times, is that Apple's developer tools are incredibly opaque, and a lot of people are out there trying to create software for Apple's platforms using these tools, and it ends up being that the hardest part is just dealing with Xcode. So maybe there's something there that could be addressed.
Amar wrote in, and this is the person who asked a technical Snell Talk question as well. They had an Ask Upgrade already. I couldn't put them in twice. Do you think the random nature of when Apple releases a new M-series chip and an even more random nature of which device gets it first and which device doesn't even get it at all is a problem? With Apple having complete control, I would have hoped for a more predictable release cadence. Instead, you get an M3 Ultra when an M4 has been out for half a year, and you get an M5 on an iPad when even the Mac Studio doesn't have it.
Okay. I don't think it's a problem, and I don't think that this is accurate. Sorry.
Okay.
I do think that Apple's release cadence is pretty predictable. They do 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4, and then 5. The M3 Ultra is a weird use case, but what I would say is almost nobody cares. It's an incredibly weird thing that happened. It may happen again, but it's the exception that proves the rule. Because saying M5 on an iPad when even the Mac Studio doesn't have it yet, Apple, I feel sometimes like and I understand the motivation here, which is everybody wants everything really neat and clear. But the fact is, Apple can't literally ship every chip in every computer that uses that chip at once. They can't. So they have to pick. And sometimes it's about availability of the chips or availability of the hardware designs. But in general, when you're in the M5 era, everything that's going to ship new is going to have an M5 in it if it's at the level that it uses that chip. They also roll down iPad Air with an M4 in it because it used to have an M3. It's last year's chip because it's. I don't think it's that big a deal. The new stuff all gets it eventually. They choose where it comes first. Sometimes an iPad comes first. Sometimes a Mac comes first. You got the MacBook Pro at M5, but no MacBook Pro high-end at M5 because that high-end M5 chip wasn't out yet. And then it came out, and they all updated. I think if you view it as a wave of products and chips that get released, I think it actually is pretty predictable and at a pretty understandable cadence. They seem to really want it to be kind of every year. It's not always quite that, but they're kind of viewing it as a model year thing because it's going along with their A-series development. And sometimes maybe it's more like 18 months, but I think it's perfectly reasonable. The M3 Ultra is a weird outlier. It is an outlier on the flow chart. It's also an outlier as a chip. It's just very weird. And but I think it's the exception that proves the rule, that they're actually pretty straightforward about how they do this. And if you're sweating the details of, well, but why is it one and not the other, and why are Mac Studio and Mac Mini still at M4 even though there's an M5 out now, I think you're sweating unnecessarily, and I think most people don't care. And also, most importantly, it's not possible. They literally can't make all the chips, make all the computers, and then ship them at once. It just takes, and that's why anytime Apple tries to get their product house in order, it takes time, and it's never quite perfect, because one wave crests and ends, and then the new wave comes in, and it's always going to be a little bit messy.
Yeah, I think when the Intel to Apple the Intel to Apple Silicon transition happened, I think that there were people that were hoping it would be very orderly and like in a way that made sense to them, right? Of like, okay, so 1 and everything gets it, and then we go to M2 and everything gets it, but it just, as you said, it just doesn't. There are many reasons why it doesn't work like that, because all of the computers aren't ready, or they don't feel it's necessary, right? Like, we don't need to revise the iMac with every chip generation. It's just not necessary, right? And so, like, there are things that don't fit a spreadsheet super clearly, but that's just kind of the way that it goes. But I can see that there were people that hoped that Apple being in full control of its silicon would have given them that reality. But it's just, there are many reasons, not just because it's Intel, also, of why that was the case.
Yes, how soon we forget that this is so much more, I'm going to just come back to these phrases, a predictable release cadence than it was when you had Macs using Intel chips. So much more predictable.
Yes, much more. An anonymous person wrote in and said, after listening to Upgrade today, I went out for an evening walk. Several miles in, I heard the faint sound of Upgrade playing again. The cause of the noise was revealed when a tandem bicycle zoomed past, loudly broadcasting the part of Snell Talk where Jason discussed Mac SE hard drive disposal. Does Jason ever play podcasts over a speaker while walking or biking, or is he strictly a headphones man?
What is this question? Did this happen? I don't think this happened. I think this is not true.
I don't know, man.
I think Anonymous likes to create a weird story that then leads to their question.
I don't know why you'd write this if it didn't happen. My favorite thing is that this person felt that they needed to ask a question as well to get this read out. Like, there was no question needed for me to read this.
Why is it a tandem bicycle?
You see, the fact that it's a tandem makes me believe this story is real, because I don't think
that's how they get you.
Say that.
That's how they get you. They put an unbelievable detail in there to get you to believe it.
You don't need it to be a tandem for me to
Upgrade
read
listener
this.
Who listens to Upgrade on a speaker on a tandem bicycle, please write in.
Yes.
Who are you?
Okay. Now, look, I don't know how we can prove this, but if you did that, I know you listen every week, right? Like, if you listened out loud on a tandem bicycle to the show, you are listening to this show all the way to the end. Like, you are in it to win it. We need proof of this. I don't know how. If you could take a picture of a tandem bike with the show,
I don't know,
work in front of it, I'll believe it. That's enough. Who has tandem bikes?
I want to know more about this. And my answer is, now that we've done that, I'm going to insult the person that we just asked to help us, because I'm going to say, no, of course I don't play podcasts over a speaker when I'm out in public. I use headphones. But I will say, for safety reasons, you shouldn't cover your ears with headphones when you're riding a bicycle.
I guess you could use those like bone conduction. I guess they're good.
You
for
could,
that,
because
right?
then your ears aren't covered. I will, when I'm on roads with my bike, I have one headphone in and the other one not. Although honestly, with transparency mode and in AirPods, it doesn't really matter. I don't hear any better with them out of my ears. Yeah. But yes, for safety reasons, don't do that. So
what I will say though,
yes.
Maybe the one scenario on a bike where you would listen to something out loud is a tandem, because you are sharing the experience of another person.
Yeah, get yourself a bike companion who wants to listen to Upgrade with you while you bike places.
Incredible, right? Like, I need to know more about this.
Please explain. Please explain.
But if we're, again, it's another angle to this. This is not the tandem angle. Which is, if this is true, can you imagine being this person? That you've just listened to the podcast and you're out for a walk, and a tandem bike goes by also listening to the show? That's weird, right?
That is weird. That's really weird.
I would be really, unsettled if that happened to me. Fantastic. If you would like to send in a question of your own, or you got any follow-up or feedback for the show, please go to upgradefeedback.com. I would like to thank our members who support us with Upgrade Plus. Go to getupgradeplus.com. You get a longer ad-free show every week. On this edition, we're going to share some information about something that we're working on that we're very excited about, that everyone's going to know about next week.
Yes.
Or maybe in the coming days. But Upgradians are going to hear about it from our mouths. Upgrade Plusians will hear about it from our mouths.
Right. That's not what they're called, but okay, yes.
What would they be called then?
I don't know.
People subscribe to Upgrade Plus.
Yes, I suppose.
Upgradians Plus?
Upgradians Plus. Maybe.
Upgradians Plus?
It's just the people who listen to that part of the show on their tandem bicycle.
You can find us on YouTube if you would like to watch us by going to the Upgrade Podcast on YouTube or searching for Zare. You'll see that we're wearing matching shirts today.
Two-person podcasts are kind of like the tandem bicycle of the ears or the mind or something.
Yes.
Right?
Tandem bicycle of the mind.
We are a tandem bicycle in podcast form.
Yeah.
Of the mind.
Of the mind. I feel like we have to keep getting the of the mind.
Tandem bicycle of the mind.
That is this podcast.
Yeah.
I would like to thank our sponsors for this week's episode. That's Mercury Weather, Fitbod, and our friends over at Sentry as well. But most of all, thank you for listening. We'll be back next week for the draft. And some exciting news. Until then, say goodbye, Jason Snell.
Can't believe it's already June, Mike Hurley, but next week it will be June. See you then.